The grand ballroom of the Eldermere Palace glittered under 1,000 chandeliers, but Vin Diesel barely noticed the opulence around him. He was here on assignment, posing as a visiting diplomat from a distant kingdom, but his true purpose was far more mundane: to deliver a sealed diplomatic letter to the king. What he hadn't expected was to find himself standing near the palace gardens at midnight, listening to a melody that made his heart skip a beat. The voice was soft, barely more than a whisper carried on the night breeze. Someone was humming a tune he knew all too well, a lullaby his grandmother used to sing to him when he was a child, back in the small village where he'd grown up before circumstances had torn his family apart. It was a song from the old country, from a place that no longer existed on any map. Swallowed by war and time, Vin moved quietly toward the source of the sound, his diplomatic robes rustling against the marble pathway. Through an archway draped with flowering vines, he saw her Princess Lisa, the king's only daughter, sitting on a stone bench beneath a willow tree. The moonlight caught in her dark hair, making it shine like silk, and her eyes were closed as she hummed the haunting melody. Without thinking, Vin began to hum along, his deeper voice joining hers in harmony. The notes came naturally, as if no time had passed since he'd last heard them. For a moment, they created something beautiful together, two voices, two strangers, connected by an impossible thread of shared memory. Then Lisa froze. Her eyes snapped open, wide with shock and something that looked almost like fear. She stood abruptly, her emerald gown swirling around her ankles as she spun to face him. "Nobody knows this song," she whispered, her voice trembling. "How do you know this song?" Vin stepped forward carefully, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. I learned it as a child. My grandmother used to sing it to me. It's from Valoreth," Lisa finished, her voice barely audible. "The kingdom that fell 20 years ago." The air between them grew heavy with unspoken questions. Vin studied her face more carefully now, seeing past the royal bearing and expensive jewels to the person beneath. There was something familiar in the curve of her cheek, the shape of her eyes. "My grandmother called it the Song of Coming Home," Vin said slowly. "She said it was sung by mothers to their children, a promise that no matter how far they wandered, they would always find their way back." Lisa's hand flew to her mouth, and tears suddenly glistened in her eyes. "That's what my mother called it too. She sang it to me every night until..." She trailed off, unable to finish. "Until Valoreth fell," Vin completed gently. Lisa nodded, composing herself with visible effort. "I was barely 5 years old. My mother was Lady Elena of House Thornfield. When the kingdom collapsed, she sent me away with trusted servants. She said I would be safe here, that King Edmund and Queen Marian were old friends who would protect me. But she never came for me. I don't even know if she survived." Vin felt as though the ground had shifted beneath his feet. "Lady Elena," he repeated, his mind racing. "My grandmother spoke of her. She was her lady-in-waiting before she married my grandfather, the royal guardsman. They served House Thornfield together." "Then Lisa's eyes widened with realization. "From Valoreth, yes. My family escaped during the final siege. My grandmother carried that song with her across the mountains, across the years. She said it was all she had left of her homeland." Vin's throat tightened with emotion. "She passed away last winter. Before she died, she made me promise to never forget where I came from, to never forget the song." Lisa moved toward him slowly, as if approaching a dream that might dissolve if she moved too quickly. "All these years, I thought I was alone. The king and queen have been kind. They've raised me as their own. But they know nothing of Valoreth. They don't understand why I sometimes wake up crying, remembering a language I'm not supposed to speak, mourning a mother I barely knew." "You're not alone," Vin said firmly. "There are others, small communities scattered across the kingdoms, keeping the old ways alive in secret. My grandmother always said that Valoreth lived on in its people, in its songs and stories. I've spent 15 years pretending to be someone I'm not," Lisa admitted, her voice breaking. "Princess Lisa of Eldermere, gracious and refined, with no past and no history before the age of 5. But late at night, I remember being Alara, daughter of Elena, running through corridors of silver and gold, my mother's voice following me everywhere." Vin reached out, and Lisa took his hand without hesitation. In that moment, they were not a princess and a diplomat. not strangers separated by rank and circumstance. They were two survivors of a lost world, connected by a melody that refused to die. "The song says we always find our way home," Vin said softly. Maybe this is what it meant. Not a place, but a person who remembers. Someone who carries the same memories, the same losses. Lisa smiled through her tears. "Will you teach me the other verses?" "My mother only had time to teach me the first before everything fell apart." "I will," Vin promised. "And I'll tell you everything my grandmother told me about Valoreth, about House Thornfield, about your mother. You deserve to know your own story." As they sat together on the stone bench, their voices rose again in harmony, singing the song of coming home. The melody drifted across the palace gardens, a ghost from the past finding new life in the present, a bridge between two souls who had been lost and were now, in the most unexpected way, found out above them. The stars of Valoreth, the same stars that had watched over a kingdom now gone, continued their eternal vigil, bearing witness to a reunion 20 years in the making.